here to share the lessons that he's learned about living fully after a stroke. And today we're going to learn about how Brian applied changes in attitude to improve perceptions of himself and his abilities, and how he applied that to his rehabilitation.
More than yesterday, less than tomorrow. When I was in college, I had a very good friend that when we would see each other through the day, taking our classes, doing homework, maybe a meter here or there, we would say to each other, rather than saying, "Hi, oh, having a great day," we would say, "More than yesterday, less than tomorrow." That was our way of encouraging each other to do our best, to succeed through everything we were trying to learn that day, that week, to make our lives better in the future. It was a greeting of love, it was a greeting of encouragement, and it's how we greeted each other through college. More than yesterday, than less than tomorrow. So, Bob, how you doing today?
Better than yesterday and not as good as tomorrow.
There you go. Will and Courtney, how you doing? I wish that for both of you. So, all of you, how are you doing today?
Better than yesterday.
Yes, we are. Because yesterday was a little tougher than today. Tomorrow is going to be a little better than today. And that's what I wish for all of you as we learn to do better. Because that's what we're doing now. We're learning to do better. We have to keep repeating things so that we get better at it and make things better for ourselves. So one of the things I did to encourage myself as I was going through my stroke recovery, and I am a stroke survivor like all of us. We're not stroke victims, we're stroke survivors. And we're moving forward. And what I would do is I went online and I found a lot of motivational sayings that were kind of important to me and encouraged me to continue to advance myself as I did my recovery. This is one that was foundational for me, because I wanted to remind myself that although I had a stroke, I was not disabled. In fact, the only thing that was holding me back was my attitude. If it wasn't great, it was holding me back. And that was instilled in me from a very young age, from a very sage individual in my life, which I'm going to quote now. How many of you might have heard this as you were growing up from your mom? And I heard it with a little attitude, something like this: "Don't give me that attitude." All right, good. I'm not the only one who's ever heard that. That was often served up with a little serving of "Go stand in the corner." Sometimes the strap, but that's because my attitude was wrong. It was bad. And it was my mom's loving way of reminding me who I should be and how I should be acting and what I should be doing for myself. And as I was doing my recovery, I realized I had to continue doing that for myself with my mom in mind. And I thank her for that. And I bring up my mom first because I am speaking in memory of her. My mom died a few years ago before my stroke, from a stroke. She taught me everything I needed to know about stroke recovery. So like Courtney, my whole family were a family of caregivers. And you'll learn a lot about stroke and how to help individuals who are recovering from a stroke by being a caregiver. And I love what you said about transitioning from caregiver to care allower. And that's important because all of us need to learn to do things for ourselves. And we have loving, giving caregivers who want to give because they love us. Being able to let go of that and allow us to care for ourselves is also a gift and a wonderful form of love. So I love that you said that. I just wanted to share a little bit about my mom because this is how I learned about stroke. Like all of us, they started life young, in love, and loving life. They were full of life. Not to the end, but still riding carousels in their 60s or so. They had a lot of fun. They were a lovely couple. They raised a wonderful family. I'm very lucky to have the family that I have because they were my stroke support system for me, as were my friends. And we had a wonderful growing up, even though we occasionally had to stand in the corner. But she did dedicate herself to taking care of others, unselfishly. And while visiting my sister in California, she had a stroke. And it was a while before they found her, unfortunately. And that's when we became a family of caregivers. And she was in California, and we had to fly her back. It took a while to get her back because she was unable to move. It was quite severe, her stroke. But we made sure that she was included in everything that we did as a family. We took her out. We went to restaurants. We didn't take her to school lunches. I didn't glad we didn't have that experience. But we did have others. We took her fishing. We took her out on the pier. You can see her sunning herself. And of course, we would go out and we went out. I love that hat. We just had fun. She really enjoyed life. And that's how she approached her recovery. What I loved about her recovery was she could not move her hands, maybe a little bit like this, maybe a little bit like this with the foot, very, very little movement. But when she did move, look at this, look what I'm doing. I'm moving my foot. Look at this. Look at me, I'm doing the wave. She really found joy in the smallest of accomplishments, and she invited us to share that with her. And I'm so glad that I learned those lessons from her. Because to find joy in the smallest of accomplishments is something really to grasp, and it really helps you move forward. Because if you can't move forward with joy, it's a little difficult. So I came from a family of moving forward with joy. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Now, I was kind of like my mom. I loved life. I was living life to the full, maybe a little large. Oh, yeah, I was a little large. Before my stroke, I was tipping the scales at around 250 or so. And that's fine. That's where I was. I was a cook. I did a lot of stuff with my kids. I loved to be involved. I was involved in school. I coached soccer with my daughter. I was involved in my church. I was involved in my town. I was involved with my family, my extended family. I was a little over-involved. Do we have anyone here? Anyone here who was a little over-involved in life? Yeah. But it was a joy, wasn't it? It was a joy. And then when I had my stroke, I couldn't do that anymore. But that's okay. So, I did live with reckless abandon, and life was good, or so I thought, until I had my stroke. I was lucky to realize that life wasn't over, but that morning was a little tough. How many of you remember the time you had your stroke, the moment you had your stroke? Yeah? I'll tell you my story because I find a little humor in it because I had to. Got up in the morning, I was having trouble breathing. I was kind of snoring, and I go, that's odd, I must really be tired. So I got up, and I tried to put my pants on. What the hell is the problem? I can't put my pants on. I couldn't use my hand. It wasn't registering. I had just woken up, and somehow I pulled my pants on with my left hand, and I thought about it. I'm like, this sounds familiar. So I walked out into the living room where my wife, Denise, was here, and my daughter, sitting on the couch. So I come out into the living room, I go, I think I'm having a stroke. Of course, I was having a stroke. So it didn't sound anything like that. So my wife just looked at me and she goes, that's not funny. And I go, no, really, I'm having a stroke. So yes, we were the couple that got into the car and drove to the hospital. Did not call 911. Drove to the hospital. I lived about 3 miles from the hospital, so it wasn't tragic. I went to UConn, and they were very kind to me, figured out what kind of a stroke I had. It was pretty bad. So they said, you know, we think you need to go to Hartford Hospital. So I came here. These guys saved my life. My carotid artery in my neck tore. So, yeah. Who would do the kind of stroke you can't prepare for, not high blood pressure. Surprisingly, it wasn't the fact that I was overweight, anything like that. It was a torn artery. So they were able to go in, repair my artery. After they repaired the artery, they had to pull the fragments of artery, I guess, that were clogging parts of my brain. I survived. So let's talk about the fallout. What did I learn after that had happened? After I was informed of my condition, it turns out that I was paralyzed on my right side entirely. I couldn't move my right hand, my right leg. I couldn't talk. My diaphragm, I could barely breathe. But I just couldn't talk because I couldn't get any air. I found a lot of little things that I was not able to do. I couldn't drink liquids. I had to learn to swallow again. I'm sure many of you had to go through similar experiences. So I couldn't walk without, I thought I could walk. I couldn't unless I had 2 nurses holding me up. So they literally had to carry me. And I wasn't going to go home. I had to go into rehab. And I was accepted at the hospital for special care. These guys right over here who helped me get back on my feet. And I just love that place. They were so wonderful. This place saved my life. They helped me get back on my feet. And I'm here talking to you today. So there are a lot of players in all of our lives that help us get where we are, including our caregivers who are here. So thank you all for helping us get there. I had a talk with God. Anyone else here ever talk with God after your stroke? Yeah. So I'm a very religious person. I taught religion. I taught all my kids through school. I used to read in church. So after I got out of my surgery, I had the priest come and give me the anointing of the sick, which is just what you do when you're Catholic, because you need that. And I thought it would be good. And the priest goes, all right, let's say an Our Father. And I went, and I couldn't remember the words to the prayer that I had been saying since I was a kid. He goes, all right, well, let's say a Hail Mary. And I couldn't think of the words. I'm like, what? The one time in my life I really need prayer, God, what are you doing to me? How come I can't talk to you? So I had to think about it, and I said to him, okay, all right, God, I do believe in you, and I know you give us things in our lives for good and for guidance. So I said, okay, so why did you give me this gift? Why did you give me this gift of a stroke? And it was in that moment that I had to, for myself, I guess, look at my stroke as a gift. And it was my job to figure out why he gave me this gift. And because I had that talk with God, my job was to find out what the meaning was in this stroke for me and what I was supposed to do with it. This was the beginning of my attitude adjustment. I started looking for that gift by looking for the positive, the overwhelmingly negative, and the despair. We talked earlier when Sue was talking about depression. Oh yeah, that hits. That hits hard, especially right after your stroke. I was hit with that, and when I realized I couldn't do what I wanted to do, so I decided to look for something else rather than despair. Because that was too easy. I had to find something else. So I started to look see the lighter side of what I was going through. And that took a long time. It kind of took me down a dark tunnel with a little light at the end, and looking for things that were funny rather than crying are what gave me hope. So there were a few things that I found not necessarily funny, but almost absurd. Because I was paralyzed on the right side, I couldn't use my right hand. So I called my right hand the rogue, because I had no idea what was going to get. I got away with a lot of stuff, being a rogue. Of course, I called my left hand MacGyver, because he did everything. And my nurses loved MacGyver and the rogue, because they gave me something to laugh about, and share and enjoy with the people who were helping me. Now, how about these little experiences? I'm wondering who here had these experiences. When they brought you food in the hospital, everything was wonderful because it was hermetically sealed. Yogurt, straws in plastic, sandwiches wrapped in cellophane. That was fun. I couldn't open any of it. I said, is this a test? Why are you doing this? I can't open this. I don't know how many yogurts I had all over the place because I just couldn't open it. The straws I couldn't. I figured that was a test, but I found the humor in that, and I shared that with them. Oh, and I also shared this with the nurses at Hartford Hospital. I said, you know, in the stroke ward, I had a roommate, some elderly gentleman, who insisted on watching the breastfeeding channel all day long. So I said to my nurse, I said, you know, showing this channel in the stroke ward is a really bad idea. I'm concerned about my neighbor. When I eventually got out of my wheelchair and I got my walker, I insisted on the tennis ball spoilers on the back legs for speed. Because that was my getaway. Oh, and Dave, I told you I was a flight risk as well. Because they couldn't tie me down. Once I got that walker with the tennis balls, I was up and down the hall. Yeah, there he goes, we gotta get him. And that's when they gave me the belts. You know, because I was a flight risk. They were always after me with the belt. I had to have the belt on so they could grab me. Because I was not going to stop. And I was foolish, but I'm going to go with courageous. But I insisted on doing it. So those are the things that I laughed at because it helped me deal with the depression, the pain, the terrifying fear that I was not going to ever get better. And it encouraged me to continue. Now, when I was doing my rehabilitation, I always tried my best to go a little further. If they asked me to do something once, I would do it twice if I could. I would try to do it twice. Those little clothespin things that were just impossible. I liked the green one. The green one was easy. Then they'd, oh, you can do that. Here's the red one. Oh, here's the blue one. Really? So I was not so color coordinated, but I kept working forward to doing that. The plastic bands, the bean bags, the balloons, holding on to balloons. The vocal exercises, I couldn't talk. That was hard. When I came home and they gave me vocal exercises to do, my exercise was because I couldn't talk, I had to just yell and make loud vocal noises, which I was happy to do. And my wife will remind me of the time that I started my vocal exercises for the first time. I just had to scream. So I am upstairs doing my vocal exercises, and she's in the basement doing laundry, and all she hears is, ah! What? I'm doing my rehabilitation. But I always did a little more. And I always did the best that I could. I was not always perfect, but, you know, I later learned that by pushing myself to do more and more reps, I was encouraging, I learned neuroplasticity. The more times I did these, the more reps I did, the better things sounded, the better things moved, and the better I was getting. This is over time. This was not over a weekend. You know, my stroke was over 2 years ago, and I feel very fortunate that I can do a lot of the things that I can do now because I kept doing them. I had all this free time because I couldn't work. So I had to fill my time with something. So I just did rep after rep after rep until I was exhausted. That did not help, but that's what I did. I pushed myself to do as much as I could. But because I pushed myself so much, this is really an important one. And this is what I did. I hurt myself by trying too hard, trying to do too much, too fast. I overdid it. I hurt myself, and I definitely had setbacks. Some things I did set me back months. But I think I was doing it because I was frustrated. I was angry, and I was pissed that I couldn't do the things I was accustomed to doing. And I did set myself back more than once because I am a slow learner. And I'm still trying right now to live with my limitations. They're not as severe as they used to be, but I still do have limitations, and I am quite aware of them. My muscles really atrophied over 2 years, more than I ever realized, so I am slowly getting back there. This is hard to do, admitting that I wasn't perfect. Apparently, as my wife is quick to remind me, you were never perfect. All right, so let's admit it. We weren't perfect before our strokes, were we?
You can admit it.
I know I can. And that's okay. I learned that it's okay not to be perfect. It gave me something to shoot for, because in my rehab I got frustrated, I got angry, I definitely struggled, and it was difficult. It was definitely difficult. And I was not happy with myself. And I'm sure one or two of you could relate to that. And it took time, but I eventually learned to love myself where I was in the process. And that's really important for all of us, to love where we are at that moment. But one of the things that I had as my goal when I was in the hospital was I was determined to walk again. That's key, because I want to be mobile, I want to get around. And I made that one of my goals. It was a process that I will share with you. I started by sitting. That was a big accomplishment. At least I was sitting up. That was before I got my belt. And then I was standing and do multitasking, doing a puzzle while I was standing. That was a big day. I accomplished that, and I was very proud of that. And I started walking. When I got home, I would walk around. I don't live far from West Farms Mall, so I would walk around the mall every day because it was level. I was walking with my cane. I had my cane then. And I would walk at night. My wife would drop me off, and I would just walk around the mall as long as I could to the point of exhaustion. But one night, I met Brianna Stewart, who was very kind to me. I went over and I told her how much watching her and the girls perform their best encouraged me to do my best. And Brianna Stewart, who's a little taller than me, is one of the UConn women basketball players at the time. When she was a senior, she was actually picking up her prom dress that night, and she was there with her friends. And she encouraged me to be like the girls and do their best. So, and I did that. I actually, upper right, that's my younger daughter. I walked in a 5K, my first 5K. I believe me, I was not a walker before my stroke. And I finished a 5K in over an hour, but I finished it. Yeah, and I did it with my cane. And after I did that, I told my doctor, he said, "You did what?" "No, I don't want you doing that." But I did it. So I was walking now, and I encouraged myself. One of the things that I would love to do, I was a speaker, and I wanted to start talking to groups again. And I did start talking. I would read at church, and again, thanks to my wife bearing with my screaming sessions at home, I learned to work my diaphragm so that I could start talking and clear my voice up. So about a year and a half after I did that first race, I did another one, and I actually finished the 5K in about a half hour, so I cut my time in half. And that's because I worked at it every day. I would walk if I put 3 hours, 3 miles a day, and it would take me at least a minimum of an hour, which gave my caregiver a break. And that was my gift to her. And that's my other daughter. Last year I ran in the Hartford Marathon 5K. So if you keep at it, and I kept at it, I found one thing, walking, that I wanted to improve. So because I was willing to keep at it and just retrain my brain to do those things, it worked. Now I did ask what my motivation was. So originally, I did my recovery as a prayer. Because I couldn't say my prayers, I said, okay, since I can't remember my prayers, I will make my recovery my prayer. It will be a prayer of action. So my recovery was really my way to pray and talk with God, since I could not remember the words to my prayers. So I did it for my family who wanted me around. I did it for my daughters because my motivator there was I have 2 daughters and I want to walk them down the aisle. I wanted to be there for them. I did it for my friends who wanted me back to normal because they were uncomfortable around me sometimes. But that was not me they were afraid of. It was their fear of that might happen to them. There was a lot of pressure from a lot of parts of my life to perform. And then I stood back and I said, wait a minute, the one person I'm not doing this for is me. Why am I not doing this for myself? So I put all these other desires on the back burner and I started to focus on myself. That wasn't selfish. That was love. And a love of me, because if I did not love myself enough to do that for me, no one else was going to do it. So I just changed my goal to doing it for everyone else, to doing it for myself. And that was kind of eye-opening. And I celebrated every accomplishment, every extra step, every extra rep, every little thing I did. I celebrated like my mom did. And I shared it with everyone. Guess what I did today? I walked around the track 5 times. Last week it was 4. I did 5 times today. That was a big accomplishment. So I took a lot of joy in that. So what helped me the most? Having a good attitude changed the way I looked at my recovery. And you don't have to do this, apply this to stroke, you can apply this to life. Having a good attitude is going to make every day a little better. Look for the gifts in your recovery because they're there. We all see the things easily that we can't do. Let's look and find those things that we can do. Look and find those gifts because we all have stuff inside of us. We are not just our bodies, we are what we have inside that we can give to others. I have a very good friend who used to be the president of the New Britain Bank and Trust, and he had a great saying that it stays with me to this day. He said, there is no one who is so rich that he doesn't have something he needs. And there isn't someone so poor that he doesn't have something to give. And it's this giving and taking that makes the world go round. So look for the gifts inside of you that you can give, because we all need things. Well, let's give our gifts and let's receive gifts and let's make this world go round, because that's how you move forward. This world's going to keep turning. Let's be part of the ride. Find joy in your rehabilitation and laugh. Look at the absurdities. Find those little things that you think maybe they're not funny, but at least they put a lighter side to what is very difficult, because that will help you move forward. And make sure you go the extra mile. It doesn't hurt to take one more step, do one more rep. But as I mentioned earlier, don't hurt yourself. It's not worth it. I did push it. We all push it. We should test the limits, but let's know our limits. One more is not going past your limits, so hopefully. But remember, we're never perfect, so don't look for it now. Do something you enjoy. Do it more, do it better every time. Because there is something that you enjoy and that you want to do, that you can do, and that you can do better. And that is going to give us purpose. And that's something that we can share and celebrate. And most importantly, let's do this for ourselves. Every one of us is worth that effort. We can do it for our kids, for our wives, for our friends. We can do it for all sorts of people. If you're not doing this for yourself, you're missing the point. This is all about you. It's all about you because you are the one who's going to make the difference in your life. You are the one who is going to make yourself better. And you are the one who is going to share that gift with other people so that they can grow. As I said, I had a great support system. I was very lucky. My family, up there in the upper left, who I love tremendously, and they were there for me. My therapists, that picture in the middle at the top, my recreational therapist set up a putting green because I like to golf, and I sunk two 40-foot putts after having a stroke. My wife was there and put the video of me sinking these putts on Facebook, and one of my golfing buddies said, "What's up?" He goes, "You never putted like that in your life." And I said, "Well, I am in stroke rehab." Thank you, we have golfers here. My wife, the caregivers. Thank you to the caregivers who do so much and carry, I don't want to say they carry a burden, but let's appreciate the fact that they are giving a tremendous gift to us. You guys are giving a tremendous gift. And if it's done with love, it's not a burden. It might be a little bit of a struggle, especially if we're angry or frustrated or a little difficult to understand because we're frustrated, but I want to thank you all for being there for us. Remember, keep going. You are going to be great. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I appreciate sharing it with you. And I wish you all more than yesterday and less than tomorrow. Thank you.
Big time, because you talked about things, it was like me. Everybody was telling me, you're not going to get over this in a weekend. And they'd say walk, and instead of walking like 100 feet, I'd try to walk around the block, and I'd be exhausted. And they kept saying to me, make little notes, slow down. But I always went at 200 miles an hour. And it was hard to change. And listening to you was very helpful to me. And I thank you so much for that.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
My name is Amish Kuo. Since I have been watching you since last 45 minutes, personally, you were looking ahead. Explaining yourself to others so energetic. You had a lot of energy, and your story says it was 2 years back. Well, mine was almost 6 years. I could not even stay not even a quarter of a mile. I had to sit down. I am with the walker. I am trying to go without it with my wife, but I could not. So Give me your secret. Okay, then
Your
energy.
secret.
Thank you.
Your secret for energy.
My secret for energy is, after this, I'm gonna go home and take a nap. Something that I had to focus on. I worked hard to the point of exhaustion sometimes, and I had to stop doing that. If I rested more, little bits here and there, that helped me with my energy. But yeah, it's also a little bit of coffee.